Bienvenidos a Founders Growth Mastermind, el podcast donde empresarios, CEOs y profesionales exitosos nos cuentan los secretos de su éxito. ¿Listo para comenzar? ¡Aquí vamos! So hello everyone, this is my second interview in English with Spyros Assonitis, who is CEO at Colvin, a Barcelona-based startup ready to disrupt the 30 billion European floral industry. Welcome to this podcast, Spyros, where we interview successful entrepreneurs who have some success, and we want to know how you got there. And in our first question, I want to know how did you get here? Okay. Tell us a little bit about you and about the company, please.
Sure. So I'm actually, my name doesn't sound, but I'm Italian. So I grew up in Italy, but I lived more or less across the world between New York, London, but now I'm based in Barcelona, as you said, Francisco. So the way I arrived at Colvin is very unoriginal, to a certain extent. Colvin was born in 2016, and it was one of these emerging startups in the Barcelona tech scene. And after some years, the founders decided that they wanted to step out and basically called me to start running this business. But yeah, I've been running the working for Colvin for 6 months, so it's quite new. I've been CEOs obviously in the past, and but yeah, I took over around October.
Beautiful. So how did you get to know those founders?
So, well, in the tech scene, the founders' names are Andres Chester and Sergi Bastardas. They are actually quite well known. They've made their name in the Barcelona scene. So I knew them a little bit from the past, meeting them in conferences, things like that. So yeah, so basically they at one point they needed a CEO because Colvin was going to another stage, and they called me, knowing they knew my background, they knew who I was, and yeah, basically again, very simple, not so original.
That's fine. So we want to know in the next section that's called "Put Myself in Your Shoes." I want to know, how's your normal week like? What you do every day?
Sorry, my weeks are quite different from one another, unfortunately, or fortunately. But yeah, my week is my normal week is obviously continuously looking at my KPIs, meeting my team. I have a strong and close relationship with my direct reports, because I really believe in the fact that there has to be a sense of collaborative spirit and sort of running the business together, not just me alone. So I always in continuous contact with the team, obviously continuous contact with investors, as Colvin has been has investors, like actually quite a few. So basically a mix of running the business, meeting my team, talking to investors, and then making sure that also that we find possible opportunities. So yeah, that's my week. Probably too many meetings probably as well, but that's something that is
yeah, I wanted to go there. So how many employees do you have, and how many people report directly to you?
So Colvin now is around 80 people, and I have around 6 direct reports.
Okay. And is there a hack you would want to share with us about picking the right people for the right position?
One of the most important things is a fit, the culture fit in an organization. And it's a culture fit within the team that I have, right? So my direct reports are very different from one another, which this contrast for me is actually very important, because it's good for us to have different personalities, but also challenge ourselves, challenge each other. So a hack for me is mostly, does this person fit within the team, but also does it fit within the values of Colvin? Colvin, we have very strict, strong values of building an organization that we work hard, it's true, but also want to enjoy ourselves doing that. We're very lucky because the floral industry, selling flowers and plants, is something that is very gratifying. Because it's a very experiential kind of thing that we do for our customers. Mm-hmm. So basically, for me, the personalities are very important.
So we have seen that the personality, the fit, the culture, the mission, the vision, and the purpose is all. They're all concepts that many of us think that are very important. However, not many companies make them as theirs as it should be, or pay as much attention. How is it in your case? You talked about values. How is it exactly that you match values with the people you either hire or you manage?
How do I match that? Well, I see first the levels of energy that they have versus what we're selling, right? I mean, I think that to be at Colvin, you really like to sell flowers. You really like to you like flowers. You know, you cannot have not necessarily a dislike, but also like an ambiguous feeling for flowers. You know, it's something that, you have to sort of have this spark of energy. And the people that work, or my direct reports, they're all actually customers of Colvin before they joined Colvin. Likewise, I was the same. I used to buy flowers through Colvin. So that for me is important, because it's a very particular kind of product, flowers. It's not necessarily, as I said before, it's not necessarily the actual gift, but it's the emotion and the experience that somebody gets when they get this gift, when they get flowers. So I think that's, for me, very, very important that people understand that. It's not a practical gift. It's an emotional one.
Yeah, totally. So Spyros, at what point did you put down the ball, like we say in Spanish, and said, you know what, or we need to have a mission that's different from where we started? Or is it the same, maybe, that when you started? How did you check on your mission, vision? Did it change? Did you have a story to that?
Yes, it actually changed, not greatly, but we tweaked it, right? We made sure that we were also able to manage the times, right? We believe that flowers and plants are important, but I think gifting, as in general, the idea of gifting more than flowers and plants, is something that is going to make a much more sustainable business. So the mission changed more into that sense that, we need to expand from flowers and plants, always with the idea of sending gifts to your significant others or whoever it is. So the mission changed, and also in practicality, the way we sell now has changed a little bit. So whenever you buy flowers, you can add on chocolates, you can add on champagne. We actually create packs of different products, something that we didn't do before. So it's more a matter of really, standing with time, and how the market is moving.
And how did you do it? Did you go to the beach house of one of the founders and started scratching, writing down stuff, or was it done with an external consultant? How did you write down your mission, vision? How did you do that?
No, it's mostly in-house. We did it with the team. I mean, there was a initial consensus that was the path, right? That we need to head into. So then we decided that, let's all sit down. We had an offsite, in Barcelona. We went somewhere and we sat down for a day and a half, and we put phones away, laptops away, and cracked on it. So no consultants, no, I think that we have people on the team that know the business very well. So we didn't think that there was any need.
What advice would you give someone who's doing exactly that, in order to have a great journey in the sense of going there and maybe do it right? Well, how did you do it in terms of doing it right?
My advice is listen to your team. There is a tendency always to go to consultants, right? And I'm not saying it brings a lot of value, right? Because you want to have an external view. But I always think that first you need to listen to your team, to the people on the floor, really understanding the customer, that talk to the customer, that, so for me, that's an advice that I would give before going and, and making sure that you, go with consultants or anything. I think you should probably go internally. Then if you think that's not the path, then obviously, yeah, you can go and talk to external people. So.
Beautiful. So in summary, going within, talk to the floor. I love that expression. talk to customers, get to know exactly what they need, how they think, and take it from there. Beautiful. All right, so I'm gonna go to the next section, which is called growth hacking. And here I want to know what was the best growth hack that maybe worked for you in this company, or you can also, if it's good, you can tell us another experience that you had that you want to share with other founders.
I'll use Colvin again because I think it's important, because flowers, again, it's a beautiful product. So content for us, content marketing, is something that we push a lot. Not only it pushes sales, but also branding. So we try and mix the two, right? So display our flowers as much as possible, making sure that we are able to reach through paid social, or Instagram, so people really understand what we do and what we sell. As soon as somebody sees our bouquet of flowers, usually there's a tendency to click and get the customer in. Another thing is that something that it was done before I arrived, which I think we'll do. In places like Barcelona and Madrid, we are opening pop-up stores, Colvin pop-up stores, for very specific events like Mother's Day, for example. Those really work a lot because obviously we have.
So not necessarily everything is online.
No,
there's a lot still to do in the analog world.
I really believe so. Maybe it's easier for a company like Colvin because of what we sell. Don't forget that our competition is not just our online players, but it's the florist down the corner, down the street.
Totally.
So we have more than one type of competition, right? So we need to make sure that we're able to compete on both ends.
So it's really a challenge for me to understand and visualize. So when you say that content marketing is important for you, for the company, can we double down on that? Like, so you do good, advice for Mother's Day or something, but what about the rest of the season? And tell us a little bit about your content marketing.
Well, we're trying to explain the world of flowers, right? And tips and tricks and, how to maintain them, how to grow them, there's a lot of things that, aspects that we can talk about in the floral industry. So we really push on the understanding of how to, understanding the product, basically, right? And how to, it's a living thing, right? A bouquet, even though it is perishable and it dies after a certain amount of time, but it's still a living thing. And we want to make sure that you're able to keep it as much as possible, within a vase, basically, right? So basically making sure that people really understand how to maintain it, what kind of flowers, seasonal flowers versus non-seasonal flowers. I mean, another thing about Colvin that we do is that we're trying to be as sustainable as possible. So we buy local flowers as much as we can. Actually, the majority of our flowers are local. We don't buy them in Africa. We don't buy them in South America. We try and get flowers in Spain. And also we're also in the Italian market and the French market. Same, Italian flowers and French flowers. So that's one of the things that we do, and that's the thing we push a lot. So we also push our value proposition, which is something that helps a lot because people are more and more customers are aware that that we need to be more ecological, I guess, right, and more sustainable.
What about the format of the content? Do you see any evolution of the format of the content? So because your flowers, maybe pictures are strong for you, but what about video? What about audio? What about that?
So video for sure. Video, again, it's a product that it's beautiful to look at. So video is something that we push a lot, right? So whether it's TikTok or whether it's YouTube, we definitely do that. And for us, they are successful, right? Because of the way our product is positioned, right? So
okay. So in our next section, which is called trending topic, I want to know, what do you think is a super hot trend that is coming in your industry in particular? Hey, Francisco Israel por acá. Y si todavía te sigues preguntando si tener tu propio podcast es conveniente, somos varios los que creemos que es la actividad de marketing B2B más rentable para contribuir a tu empresa. En FRISMO.com lo hacemos todo por ti y tú solo te dedicas a tener conversaciones valiosas. Nosotros nos encargamos del resto.
I think there's a couple. One we're already doing is being as local as possible. Right? More and more customers are looking at what kind of company we are, or what companies are doing as far as sustainability. That is something that Colvin, I think, initiated, and we're doing it. We're doing it as now, but it's something now customers more and more are accustomed to know. So that's important. That's something that I think that the idea of buying flowers from very far places is sort of losing traction. Also because of the travel that the flower has to make from one place to another, and they last less, right? So I think that's definitely a tendency that more and more customers are looking at. And plus, as I said before, expansion of products, so being able to not just buy flowers, but flowers with something else, flowers with, so to enrich the experience, from a perishable good, which is flowers, to a non-perishable one.
Beautiful. All right, so I'm going to go to another section here, which is called Make a Wish. And I want to know, what do you think is the service that could be used for CEOs in general, or mid-sized CEOs, for them to get to the next level? What is a service that is missing out, that you wish it was there, but you haven't found it? Or
I know it's a hot topic, and it has been a hot topic for the last year or more than that, but definitely mental health is something that a CEO and a founder, and I don't want to generalize, but it's obviously something that many people struggle with. It's tough, it's not easy to be a CEO. It's not easy to be a founder. Well, I mean, we signed up for this, right? So we know, right? It's not like, I don't want to be a martyr or anything, but I think that having more ability to understand and to know what your limits are from a mental health perspective. I've seen CEOs burn out, which is not only not good for the person itself, but for the company. I've seen CEOs not admitting that there's a problem. And I think that building this awareness is super important. I'm a little older, so I feel that I believe that this is something that you cannot underestimate. So having, and there are services that you can use to understand where you're at,
What kind?
Well, there's more online therapists that you can talk to, which again, I think it's super important, also. And again, I don't want to generalize, but in Southern Europe especially, there's still a little bit of a stigma going to the therapist, especially. And I think that needs to change a little bit. I think it's fine. Like in the US, I lived in the US, and it's sort of totally normal. I think that has to change, and it's not a sign of weakness, Actually, it's a sign of strength that you're able to go and talk to someone and make sure that you are able to balance your life, balance your personal with your work, and making sure that your levels of energy and levels of mental health are healthy.
So going from there, maybe not, I want to ask you, what has your, and maybe in another experience, if you will, not just this one, sure, what has been your biggest struggle as a CEO, and how did you solve it?
The biggest struggle is always, for me, finding the right team, the right blend of team, right? It's a struggle because it takes time. It's a struggle because obviously, I love mentoring my direct reports, but it's something that obviously, you have to balance with the fact that you're running a business. For me, it's always sort of the biggest struggle is that, it's really managing, building the right team and building the strongest team possible. Then obviously the struggle is funding and whatever, the normal things, right? Getting more investment and making sure that you have a long runway. But I think that if you're able to solve the fact that you have a strong team, you solve a lot of problems.
How do you deal with that?
I'm selective, being very selective when you hire. Being by selective, I mean making sure that you're hiring the right person. So if it takes time, it takes time. Making sure that also that the hiring, for example, is not just done by me; it's done through the rest of the team. So have more of a collaborative session on that, and making sure that we are able to, that this person fits within the ecosystem of your teams and your business. So for me, it's super important.
So I might want to dig a little deeper there because I'm a founder and CEO, and I have that challenge. I'll tell you what I do, and it's not necessarily the best thing. So there's a saying that says something like, you should take your time in hiring and fire fast or something, right? I do it, and I'm not sure if it's right. I do it, I don't want to say the other way around, but what I tell people that work with me is that I tell them I don't work with people until I work with people. So if I have a good feeling with the people, I tend to hire, let's say for one position, I tend to hire 3 people. And then for those 3 people, I let them work, see what happens. And while working, like, on a project, maybe a part-time project or something, and in the work, I see if they really are a good fit, if they communicate well, if if we have a good vibration or something.
Yeah.
And I take it from there. Because in the interview, everyone shines in the interview, right? Everyone says everything right. So that's how I do it. What things do you take care of in order to make sure that those are the right hires?
Once they're in there, right? Once they're part of the team.
Or not, or before, or actually before.
There is a level of gut feeling that I bring to the table, right? So it's not necessarily scientific. It's scientific from a skill set perspective, right? So obviously you want to make sure that the person knows, what he or she is doing, and and they know that they master, their experts in their field. But you're right, there is a connection. I have to have a connection somehow. And this connection, not necessarily just with me, but the connection with the company. I'm able to sort of, I think at least, I'm able to separate the two, right? Whether I like the person versus whether he's actually a good fit with the company. In an interview, it's not always, you're right. It's you're the best representation of yourself, right? So not necessarily you are fully, you're telling the truth, not the truth, but you're fully exposing the totality of yourself. Yes, that's true. But there has to be a gut feeling. You have to have some sort of, okay, well, I think that this is going to work. And I've failed. It's not like I've succeeded all the time. I did not hire well in the past, and which is, I think it happens. It's normal. But I think the more you manage people, I think that I'm refining a little. Every year I refine a little bit more this kind of gut feeling and sort of connection. Again, I hired people that weren't a fit in the company even recently, right? So it's not like it's a perfect science. But there has to, I agree with you, there has to be something. There has to be something that you feel.
Do you have a lot of remote people working?
Yes, we do. Actually, Colvin is a full remote, organization, which multiplies even more the difficulty, right? Because that is something that doing it through a Zoom or whatever, a Google Meet, it's not necessarily always it's not great, to be honest. It's something that struggle. And also once you hire them, right? Because they go through an onboarding process, they go through, but then building a culture or understanding the culture of a company remotely is much harder. But we try and connect as much as possible, whether collectively, whether one-to-one, but it is more complicated. That's
all right.
For sure.
So thanks for that. In the next section, which is called Damn KPIs, I want to know, how do you set your goals in your organization? You just mentioned that your week kind of starts or has a lot of looking at your KPIs, but how do you set them up? So if you sold 100 pesos or dollars or euros last year, how do you know if this year you have to sell 120, 150, 200 or whatever? How do you set those goals?
Right. Well, I have investors, so it makes it there's a little bit more of a mandate as to exactly what investors and shareholders want. So the way we set them, I have a bottom-up approach. So I usually, the way the budget process starts is that I let the teams come up with what the goals should be. Yeah, exactly. Then, I have a look at them and I say, well, maybe we need a little more, or even it's not realistic. So, but it starts out, it's a bottom-up approach. Then it goes through, a more like myself and the CFO, and then we decide whether this is realistic or not. And then we have sessions with the team, and then we have, much more interactive sessions, and we challenge each other. And then we present it to the board, and then the board decides whether it's fine or not. And the board might come up and say, no, we need more. And then we go back to the drawing board and do that. But I start with the bottom-up approach.
Do you use special methodology like OKRs, or like, there are a couple of ones around?
We have pillars. We have a pillar system, basically. Colvin used to have OKRs, but we stopped using them because, we want to be a company that is able to sort of change targets, at a whim. And we thought that OKRs prevented us from doing that. So we have pillars, and within these pillars, we have like a high level, what we need to achieve, what's the objective of a pillar. Every pillar has a stakeholder, whether it's myself or part of the management team. And then we build that through that, basically. And our pillars go from purely business to building a better culture to,
Okay, beautiful. And you check them out like quarterly or something?
Monthly.
Quarterly?
Monthly. We check them monthly. We usually report on them monthly to the entire organization. So yeah.
Yeah, there's one book that I like a lot. It's kind of like, there is the OKR system, if you will, that measure what matters. And then there's another one that I like a lot. It's called Traction. I forgot the author now, but it's really popular as well, especially in the tech scene. But I like that one too. I recommend it for strategic planning and KPI processing and all that. The next section, which is called Eye of the Tiger, I want to know, how do you get up when you're down and, Ivan Drago stroke you down and you're, eating the floor? How do you get up?
Thankfully, I'm an optimistic person, right? So, and I think that I've been hit by Ivan Drago, quote unquote, many times in my career. I think it's a sense of personal, I'm very competitive with myself. So if I get hit or something happens, I tend to get up because I'm very competitive, and I'm not going to accept personal defeat. So again, it's something that I've done all my career. So I really push myself. I don't put myself down. Things happen, right? I think the business is a roller coaster. There's good moments, and there's bad. So if you have that kind of self-awareness, I think you're able to get up quicker. But that comes with experience, right? That comes with me being around for a longer time. For the younger generation, it's I can imagine that it's hard, but you almost want to tell them, look, things will get better. You just have to work hard. It does not bring any value of being down. And as a leader, you need to show to the rest of the organization that you're still there. You are the positive person, or trying to work things out. So it's also a responsibility of a leader to do that.
How do you show vulnerability to your people if you're always up?
No, but I'm transparent. So there's a level of transparency, right? That I have to bring. If things are not going well, I'm not going to say, hey, everything's great. But the way you communicate transparency is important in my eyes, right? You have to show strength, because it's important that you show, your team that, yes, it's hard, but we're going to do it. We're going to manage it. We're going to
lead with example, right? You walk the talk.
Exactly. So imagine, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's looking at a CEO, and the CEO looks dejected.
Yeah.
It's not a great sign, right? And it brings that level of dejection throughout the organization. But you also need to be transparent. You cannot say that everything is roses when it's not. People are not stupid.
Okay.
So
I have a tough one for you now. So if the other ones are not tough enough, no, just kidding. So what do you think founders of the company saw in you as the key skills that you bring as a CEO to the company?
I think that the level of discipline that I have, managing and probably managing teams. They've seen they went through a process of talking to other people that worked with me. So they saw probably overall a strong manager, and somebody who fits well with what Colvin represents. Again, I have a very collaborative kind of approach with the teams. So, and I think that's something that they really liked, right? They didn't want a micromanager, but they also didn't want somebody who's always directive, right? Obviously, as CEO, I am at times, but it's always important to get buy-ins from the rest of from your team. So,
is there a couple of books, experiences, or a mentor or an ex-boss that you had in which you mainly learned these management skills?
I've learned. I was very lucky enough. So I worked at Expedia, the online travel agent, and I was lucky enough to have met a few times the CEO at the time, which is Dara. He's now CEO of Uber, by the way. And I learned a lot from him just by looking at. I had interactions with him, but not as many. Obviously, he was. I wasn't reporting to him at all. But just seeing the way he was as a CEO, very empathic, but at the same time, very strong strategic sense. As you said, he would walk the walk. There was examples of him, really getting into the business, very much into the business. It's something that I appreciated also because you saw the results, right? And you said there was moments where Expedia was struggling, but it wasn't as growing as much as it wanted, and him stepping in, and but at the same time stepping in a collaborative manner, was a great example for me and a great model.
Beautiful. So in the last section, which I like a lot, which is called Doctor Strange, in honor to the Avengers superhero, I want to know if you have any spiritual practice at all, and is that any influential in your work life?
I exercise, I wouldn't say a lot. I exercise quite a bit. So I don't know if it's spiritual or not, but I exercise. I play football, soccer. I don't know how as well, which maybe it's not spiritual for others, but for me it is because I love playing. So that helps me a lot. Just physical exertion helps me a lot. I do yoga with my wife when I can, but again, it's not the spiritual side of part of yoga that I do. It's more the being more flexible and mobile. So yeah, I think for me, exercising is important.
You know what? About a third of the interviewees that have come here have that same exact answer. Like, I don't necessarily have a spiritual, discipline, but I do a lot of sports. That seems to be a very recurrent answer. If it serves you in any way, I'll give you that fact.
Thank you.
More than a tip. All right, Spyros. We're coming to the end of the journey. I have learned a lot, and I am pleased to get to know you. There's a space now for you to just say whatever you want to your customers, people, marca empleadora or whatever. If you want to attract whatever is good for you, you have a space now.
Thank you. I mean, I could say just, if you're in Spain and Italy or France, buy a Colvin, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
I think that it is a great company. It's a great quality of flowers that we have. It's a great team. So everything that we do with a lot of care. We're always happy, to try and make the customer as happy as possible. We're very customer centric, right? So, and you have to be in this industry. You cannot, deliver horrible flowers. So yeah, come to Colvin, and you'll get a great experience.
Beautiful. Okay, let's keep disrupting this market that you're into. And thank you for coming.
Thank you, Francisco. It was a pleasure.
All right, bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Hey, Francisco Israel por acá. ¿Quieres tener tu propio podcast, pero no te quieres encargar de nada? En FRISMO.com/podcast nos encargamos de todo, desde buscar el entrevistado hasta la edición y publicación. Tú solo te dedicas a tener conversas significativas y nosotros hacemos el resto. Entra a FRISMO.com/podcast. ¿Te gustó este capítulo? Ayúdanos dejando una reseña de 5 estrellas para seguir contribuyendo. Y no olvides de suscribirte para que no te pierdas el próximo estreno. ¡Nos vemos!